A weird game, definitely a pre-season friendly feel to it, I think. Both teams didn't look like they were at their best or like they had their best teams out even, did they, Miles? But Manchester City in particular were unrecognisable, really. Quite a few young players in there. And they won on penalties in the end, 7-6. So what did you make of the game, first of all? And also, what went well for Manchester City, do you think?
Yeah, the game was pretty typical of a Community Shield, really, where you've got a couple of lineups that you're not that familiar with, looking to get some match fitness. And ultimately, we didn't really see what we would expect of Man City in particular. And I think Man United were probably the better side for the majority of the game. But the quality that Man City have showed in moments. So you mentioned some of the young players that came in there, a couple of them that we're a bit more familiar with in Rico Lewis and Oscar Bobb. They look like they're now cementing their places in Pep's plans, really. And Bobb in particular, I thought was really threatening. Obviously, he got the assist for Bernardo's goal, but even before that, in the first half, Man City were much better as a side than Man United seemed to be. It took a bit of time for United to click into gear, and City seemed like they were willing to offer something. But that clinical nature that we're kind of familiar with Man City seemed to be lacking a little bit. I think they only managed one shot on target in the entire game, which is really uncharacteristic for them. But it's one of those, like you say, isn't it? No one really treats it that seriously anymore. It's kind of seen as that warm-up game. And I think teams will always want to win it, particularly when you're at Wembley in front of your fans, in front of a direct rival. Like, this was the perfect kind of game to have as the Community Shield, particularly after a kind of repeat of the FA Cup final, where it felt like Man City had a point to prove and Man United had some momentum to build. That was the only kind of jeopardy going into it. And Man City came out on top ultimately in a nothing kind of penalty shootout.
Some young players in the lineup. We talked about Oscar Bobb. He's one of them players I don't think you can just say his name on its own, can you? Just Bob. It sounds weird. Oscar Bobb.
The most American name ever for a Norwegian.
It doesn't sound Norwegian at all, does he? But obviously selling Julian Alvarez, which has been confirmed now to Atletico for good money, like £81 million or something. And I don't think Pep's looking to replace him for that position. And I think it looks like he's putting his faith in these new young attacking wide players. And I think Bob was one of the players that was kind of earmarked as potentially being there ahead of Cole Palmer, for example, and they let him go. And it's a brave call, and he's got a lot of faith in him. Do you think City will do any more business, or do you think that the players they've got, the young blood that's coming through, including obviously Savinho, who's been signed too, is enough for them?
Yeah, Savinho looked good actually when he came off the bench as well, didn't he? I think it's funny because I think Pep said before the game that they would bring in 2 players before the end of the window. No one knows who they are. I haven't heard anything really, or what sort of profile or position they'll be. I'll tell you one player that I think could really benefit from Alvarez going on, and it's a bit of an unknown quantity, a talent that not many people are aware of. But if you're looking for someone to kind of fulfill an attacking role, can play out wide, can play beyond the striker, I'd keep your eye on Jack Grealish. I wonder...
Wondered where that was going then.
It's got to come good for him at some point, hasn't it? When you think about the players that weren't in the Man City squad for this game, Phil Foden still to come back. De Bruyne only came on very late. Grealish is another one. Like there's enough there to cope without Alvarez, you would imagine. But also, it's a lot of money that City are going to have in their back pocket now. We know that Pep likes to get his checkbook out.